Jeez. Go how about that? Happy Thanksgiving. Sorry, autocorrect. If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, you're understanding the changes in the industry, and you've got a good handle on the economy, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti while Byron Lazine is vacationing on a yacht down in the Caribbean, is what I've heard. I don't know if any of that's true. I think he's in the Virgin Islands. So we're holding it down. And Lisa, I wanted to start with this because normally one of my favorite things to do this time of year, we do it on our radio show as well as we did it on this pod and the walkthrough before Knowledge Brokers even existed, was Turkey of the Year. So if you don't know what a turkey is, obviously we're all going to be eating turkey next week. This is our pre-Thanksgiving episode. The turkey we're talking about is the biggest loser, the biggest idiot, the buffoon of the year. And normally, you and I would go back and forth and say, hey, it's this person, it's that person, it's this organization. There is a unanimous choice this year, and it is the National Association of Realtors. Most recently, they had their spending exposed. I'm going to give you some facts here. And Lisa, I want your reaction to this once I go through some of these facts from the New York Times expose. A lot of credit to Deborah came in. She exposed the sexual harassment allegations last year, and she came back again for an encore with a very corrupt and disappointing organization. Some of the spending habits here were, you ready for this? Bob Goldberg, right? Bob Goldberg. So this guy, con of the century here. He had membership fees for private clubs in Chicago and Washington, as well as a country club of his choice, including an initiation fee of $75,000, first-class airline tickets for him and his wife, a monthly car allowance of $1,500, $2,250 a month to cover utilities and insurance for his Chicago pied-à-terre, must be nice, and paid pet sitting when he was when he was away from home on business, on top of a $1.2 million salary, which doubled to $2.6 million in 5 years. This is an insane package for a nonprofit advocacy organization. What do you think about this, Lisa?
Actually, I think his base salary was $2.5 million.
It started at 1.2 and then doubled to 2.6 over time. You're absolutely right. I think I said that.
Yeah. So that is an insane salary to start. Let's also talk about the line item for travel for the entire organization, $10 million. How many membership fees is that? What's the $300 a year per member to NAR? Is that right?
I'm going to pull out my calculator. I just paid my dues, and I'm not happy about having to pay them, but I need MLS access. So let's look this up.
33,000 membership dues went just for the travel line item for NAR. 33,333 people paid $300 to NAR to fund a $10 million travel budget. How's that make you feel?
It makes me feel like this organization is focused on all the wrong stuff, unlike most of its members, because most real estate agents focus on all the wrong stuff anyway, like most of his members is what I should said. I just, there's a lot of red flags here. And when you look at this story, and I don't want to go too much into this because there's some actual stuff that's going to help people we're going to talk about. There was a lot of red flags that came up from nonprofit experts. So in the article, the six-figure payments to leaders referred to as volunteers. Okay, I'll volunteer for a seven-figure salary, Lisa. I don't know about you. And they are very controversial. Jeff Tenenbaum, a nonprofit lawyer based in D.C., described it as highly unusual and I would say even virtually unheard of for volunteer leaders and officers to receive compensation at those levels. And then he talked about the excessive compensation along with the personal benefits for spouses and stipends for luxury retreats could actually pose as legal risks. And then there was even further analysis here that talked about that these there might be like some backlash because the 1.5 million members of NAR, and they contribute to 87% of NAR's revenue, right? So that's what. Yep. So they get 13% from somewhere else. It's an interesting number that it's 87%. By the way, I think that's fascinating. And everyone's saying there's a disconnect between leadership and the average realtor paying dues to 3 different realtor associations to access the MLS. I mean, people should be ticked off. I've got people on our team that are ticked off, and we're stuck because we want MLS access to do our jobs, and we are locked in there. And you're in an interesting spot because you're affiliated in one state and not affiliated in the other. I don't have a choice. We're members of
Right.
Bright MLS. The odds of Bright MLS backing out of NAR, I would say, are 0.0. What do you think about this? I mean, I just want to get, I mean, these numbers are just bananas. The reaction's been, people are like, are you kidding me? And it's just, they don't even care. Like there's no response.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. I think the other layer to look at, and something that I'm super cognizant of, is what is the average salary, or not salary, but what's the actual annual compensation for one of the paying members? I think, what do we say right now? An average agent in the United States earns $50,000-$60,000 a year.
It's less than that. The NAR report identifies it as in the high $30,000 range.
So you've got volunteers being paid the equivalent of 3 times what one of their members is earning by actually operating in the field. I just, turkey of the year right there, right? Like it's such disalignment. And then you're correct. In order to say that, in order to do our jobs, we have to fund it at that level, is just insane to me. It's the only word that I can come up with. And it just, when does it stop?
Well, I think that's going to be the challenge here. And I've talked about this on our radio show. I've talked about this with members of our team. And, there was Mauricio Umansky. He came up with the AREA, the American Real Estate Association, or whatever it is, a rival association. That sounds great. It's a lot of work. And I think that, when you look at organizations, and not just real estate, this is any industry, right? So auto body shops, dentists, whoever. There's people that focus on building their business. I would put you and I in that category, that we're focused on building our business, helping people, doing the things that are going to actually matter for the people that we work with, because I feel like we've got a responsibility to the 60 or 70 plus people that are out in the other room here that are working for our team. You've got more than that. So that's one thing you got to look at. And then there's other people that say, hey, I'm going to get involved in the associations and actually do something. And I don't know how you fix this unless you get involved at some level. This doesn't mean getting involved at NAR or your state association or your local association. This means doing something about it. And creating another association, that's a tall order, especially with someone like Deep Pockets, NAR, that have all this money that they're sitting on here. So it's a challenge. And we talked about this before with Jack Miller. I know Byron went to the NAR NXT conference. I mean, it's the people that start showing up, I think, would get some attention. The challenge is you got to be part of the club, and they do not let people in. We talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, and I did it again. So I've reached out to a member of the board, said, hey, how do I get involved locally? Because locally is more my speed, right? They told me there was a bunch of different things, and the 2 ways you get involved are go through their leadership academy, or you're identified as a person of interest. I've heard nothing since. This was over a week ago. I've also emailed the association twice now. How do I get involved? Crickets. And you would think they would want someone involved that's a local thought leader, a local business leader that's doing a lot of transactions. I'm not even getting a response. So that to me is very indicative of the mindset of these associations.
Yeah, well, I think it's also the interesting thing. I did do some volunteer work at our local board before
How'd
dropping
that
out in
go?
Massachusetts. So I volunteered for the education committee, right? And it was fascinating to be a part of. I think, if my memory is correct, I was a part of it for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in that length of time. And it was just super fascinating. One, being involved in the committee at a local level, there was zero compensation. 100% of my time was completely volunteer based.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I felt it. The reason I stopped is I felt it was impossible to really make any real change. It was just so set in the ways of everything had to kind of flow through, still being very realtor centric as opposed to being very industry centric.
Mm-hmm.
Speakers, if they were going to be from within the real estate industry, also needed to be realtors. We couldn't invite in folks who were non-realtors to do any speaking with members. And I felt like it wasn't really designed to provide education about current stuff. And it was very strategic in a lot of ways. But the biggest thing that I come back to is most agents don't have a connection to the National Association. Most agents have a connection to their local boards. And where I think, look, the associations as a whole, if we group them all together, can have the biggest impact is on the local level,
I
right? To
agree.
your point, it's where everybody's going to engage. But there's no funding for that. There's no real, my local board, I don't know about yours, but I don't even think mine had any travel budget. And the budgets for speakers were so minimal, but would have had the bigger impact. So it's just super fascinating to me to think about the divide there and how to get people involved. And I think we've seen maybe on the local level, the same thing we see on the national level. It's the same people over and over and over, and the same messaging over and over and over.
Well, and you know, I've reached out to the board before and I said, hey, how about would you be open-minded to me doing some business planning classes? I didn't
Oh
go
boy.
through any of the, you know, and I'm looking like, hey, can I help you guys? Right. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do this. You know, people, they ask you to
Yep.
speak places. They ask me to speak places. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. And this is not patting myself on the back. This is, hey, most agents don't have a business plan. This is one of the biggest gaps and when it comes to implementation in the business. And it was a closed-minded response. And I think that's the biggest challenge is that, hey, you got to go through the education training. You got to go through this. You got to go through that. Well, to get someone, right, just imagine, let's take it outside of real estate, right? Just imagine if you're trying to get a speaker to come somewhere and think of any speaker that's out there, right? And let's say it's someone that's willing to do it without a fee. And you're telling them, hey, you got to get approved in all these classes to do it. I mean, think of the best speaker you could think of. I mean, we've seen like Tom Bilyeu speak or Peter Diamandis or all these people. Imagine if Tom Ferry said, hey, in order to come speak to my clients, you got to go through our training course. It's just going to turn people off. And unfortunately, that's the mindset that seems to be across the board. I mean, we're talking anecdotally about two major metros that have these associations, and it's kind of the same story.
You know what so fear-based mindset, you know what I offered same thing, business planning clinic, 'cause it's something I'm super passionate about. We don't teach it in anywhere, is that we tell everybody you're getting into real estate to run a business, to own a business, to build a
Yeah.
business. We don't teach them how to do a P&L. We don't teach them how to understand expenses and marketing and all of that. It stepped up, this goes back before COVID, and offered to do just that with a business planning clinic. And the closed-minded response was, we're afraid that you're going to use it as a recruiting opportunity and that it'll create agent
Yep.
movement.
I said the same thing.
So,
No, and they have very aggressive non-recruiting policies. So it's okay. We're going to get and you know there should be policies around that. I'm not saying that's the case, but you can't assume the worst. I mean, there, you know, there. I
100%.
mean, if I didn't want to share what I'm doing in my business, I wouldn't post all this stuff on social media about exactly what we're doing in the
Correct.
office. Like there's no secret here, and
Yep.
that's the point. I mean, and we've learned that from a lot of mentors and coaches that we've shared and we've met individually that just put all the stuff out there. Most people aren't going to do it anyway. There are people that need that help. And, you know, it's the challenge with the industry. And that's, I was talking to our sales manager, Brian, and he goes, man, this is just a screwed up business. It's a screwed up industry because there's not the same regulations. You got this national association that's spending money on private club memberships and first class airfare. I mean, the stuff Eric has been posting has been really funny, but I would imagine pretty close to the truth, where they're, you know, Monday night ordering the bottle of wine, all the things he's putting out there. It's a challenge in the industry, and that's where, you know, Byron's been talking about agents of change. I'm clear there's an opportunity here. The problem is breaking down the barrier to actually get in the door, because it seems like it's a bigger barrier than I think anybody imagined. And you know, maybe someone will step up and form a new association. I'm concerned that anyone who would really want to do that, I mean, it's a major time commitment that takes away from business, and that's the biggest challenge. Is the one thing we don't have a lot of, Lisa, is time.
Agreed. Agreed. 100%. All right. Next topic. I think we
Enough
should
of these
quickly round it
turkeys.
back.
Turkey of the year, NAR, no debate. Congratulations, you've done it again. So now we do have some interesting news I want to hit on around what's going on with buyer agent commissions post NAR settlement. Now, I've got some
All
questions
right.
about this. So there was an article that Mike DelPrete put out. Mike DelPrete, one of the better minds in real estate, in my view, from like an outsider's perspective. I find his stuff fascinating. Bam did a nice job breaking this down, as well as Mike on his website. And what he's saying is that we're not seeing a big change in buyer agent commissions post August 17th. I mean, they're looking at the trends right now, and there's a chart that he's got up. I'm sure we can put the chart up here. It's on his website with the sample size of 55,000 transactions a month that, earlier in the year we were seeing, commissions hovering around the 2.62 to 2.65% range. The change we're seeing now is an average of 2.59. So we're talking about, 3 to 600ths of a percentage point. I find this data interesting, but I've got a question for you, Lisa. How are people actually tracking this? Because there's no database for this anymore. It's not on the MLS. Are they taking people's word for it? I question the data here. I don't question Mike. I question the data set.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was the first thing that I thought when I read it. So it does say that they pulled some of the biggest brokerages in the US to kind of snag the data. I think it's interesting because I think there's also a lot of buyer agency compensation that is happening outside of the actual transaction, if you will. There's some stuff where we're seeing that the seller is agreeing to pay some of it, which is what the article actually really kind of dug into. But then we're seeing situations where the buyer is bringing additional funds to the closing table or paying directly to the buyer agent's brokerage for those services. And so I don't necessarily know that it's all being accounted for. I think I'm also, one of the things that I've been saying is I think that amount of movement is in the noise and might be able to be accounted for with some seasonal adjustments, right?
Sure.
Like we're in the low point. So a small decrease isn't necessarily, like it's not, I don't think it says anything. I think where it's going to be super fun to look at, let's give it through all of 2025 and really look at where does 2025 shake out? And my gut says it's going to go up a smidge in some markets. And I think in other markets, it might drop down a little bit. I think taking into account, we are in a little bit of a non-competitive situation right now, where we're kind of seeing sales at a low point, inventory at a high point, days on market have increased more than they've been in the past couple of years. I think all the signs tell us that we might see a more competitive spring market. So it'll be interesting to see what truly shakes out when we give it time to be in that lower days on market, more competitive marketplace, to see if agents are able to really retain that. But then again, tracking, I suspect that there'll be some compensation not totally being paid for by sellers. And I don't know that that's really able to be tracked.
I mean, the only way to track it is to audit every single settlement sheet that exists, and I mean that's a lot of work. I mean, if you're surveying brokerages, I'd imagine they have reports of this stuff because it's all got to go through the brokerage anyway. So
We
if
track
they're
it internally. Yep.
yeah, for sure, but I mean, then you're also asking people to give up like internal accounting, which is I think a tall order
Yeah,
in
they're
some
never going to
cases.
do that.
So
Yep.
it's a tough call. I tend to agree with you, Lisa, and I'm going to add something else here. It is way too soon because there's still
Yep.
people that don't even know about the settlement, right? There's still people that that you tell them what's going on and they're fine with it. They don't have any questions. There's still agents that don't know how to handle the settlement, right? And
100%.
I mean, we had an agent the other day, and we were negotiating an offer, and the agent on our team said, "Hey, is the seller offering compensation?" And the response was, "It's on the MLS." And I'm like, "Wow, have you been asleep for 90 days? Like, is that really what you're telling us here?" So this is way too soon.
Yep.
It's a positive thing. I can tell you internally where we've really made a big change is it's becoming easier to get these agreements signed than it was in August because now it's been 3 months, let's call a little over 3 months since it's happened. So this is going to revert towards this is really how you have to look at homes. I mean, that's going to happen over time anyway. That's something we've said on the pod here a while. I think this is too soon, and I do agree with you. I think people are going to start to maybe pay a little more, or you're getting combined compensation, like you said. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that now, and then there's also the part of when you get the process down, right? And what I'm talking about is instead of just meeting at the home, instead of just trying to get the contract signed, and this is something I learned my very first year in real estate from my mentor. Big shout out to John Collins. He said, get the buyers in the office before you start touring homes with them. wow, something that worked 20 some years ago still works today. Welcome to this business. The basics work. You just have to master the basics. And there's people that are doing a lot of that and they're having a lot of success. I'm seeing this at our team. I don't know what you're seeing. And some are over explaining the contract on the phone, getting into all the
Yep.
details. That's a turnoff for any consumer, myself included. I mean, imagine your accountant tells you about some accounting change over the phone and doesn't want to like go over it with you. I mean, that's just, and they're just like, all right, just sign here. I got to get this thing filed. Like, that's not how it works. So it's too soon to tell here. I think we're
Yep.
way too early in this process.
I think the other thing that's going to come into play, and I don't know if you see it, but I'm going to guess you do as well, which is there was this very early on, there was a divide between brand new agents and our seasoned folks. And my
Mm-hmm.
brand new agents were going in and making an ask for 3% and getting it because they
Yep.
didn't know any better. And then I had my less experienced folks who they were not as comfortable and they weren't as confident doing that. So they made lower asks up front. Now that their confidence is increasing, I'm watching some of those agents say, wait a minute, that's not my value. I'm worth more. And it's funny because I've been watching it where a handful of them have said, I've moved up by half a point. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're saying that's kind of my segue into being able to move it up again. And so I think it's going to be fun to watch it shake out really, truly over a 12-month period. And I haven't seen, I don't know about you, I haven't seen any real true discount brokerages pop up like, what's his face and his flat fee one.
There's so many of them.
But
Homie,
nothing really, oh, well, it hasn't really popped
Purple
up yet.
Bricks. I don't know. I mean, there's a million of them. I mean, they're all out there.
But my point is they're not like all of a sudden taking market share. Like there was this expectation that they were going to, right? And I don't know that the consumer really wants to go that way. So I think it's gonna be fun.
Well, when you think about having to engage someone on some level, whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive, and the non-exclusive to me, we have that in Pennsylvania. That's a tool for a lot of people. That's a way to meet the requirements, build a
Yep.
relationship, build trust. When you have to sign something, people think twice about going with the cheapest option. And
Mhm.
when you're engaging someone, I mean, you're locked in at least for a property, right? I mean, that's what the non-exclusive agreement does in Pennsylvania. I can't speak to other states. If they buy that home, there's an entitlement. They're thinking twice about,
Yep.
do I really want to use this person versus someone who's a disaster on the phone and they're just trying to get into the home and decide later if they want to use them to negotiate, which is what happened. I mean, that's the reality. So that's gonna be a big deciding factor for consumers because signing something is a form of commitment. And when people have to make written commitments, they take a little more time to think about it versus just let me in. I want to go see the property.
Yeah, 100%.
So we
All
got all
right.
these
What you got for
predictions
your
out here, Lisa. I
Yep.
got it all. I'm ready to go. Proper preparation
Okay.
prevents poor performance, my friend. So we've got
Well, what
some.
I was gonna say is which one do you want to
Which
go
one?
to? Not that I hadn't prepared.
I know you didn't prepare. I was more just defending myself.
Okay.
So we've got some interesting data here from Lance Lambert. So I love the ResiClub. It's like the real estate go-to site. He puts a lot of trends together. The data is fascinating. I'm sure you like the ResiClub because you're a data geek. And this came out at the beginning of the week. 54 of the nation's 200 largest housing markets are now above pre-pandemic inventory. It was just 17 markets last year, so we're seeing that more than triple. And there's an interesting trend when you look at the data. To me, this is good news for everybody because we're seeing inventory trend up. That's one of the biggest complaints for consumers. Agents complain about it all the time. If there was only a little more inventory, we'd be selling a lot more houses, which I don't totally agree with. That's not what we're going to go with here today. If you look at the data here, and I'll have Bobby put the slides up, there's the 200 markets. So you see the markets that are seeing a big rise. Just out of curiosity, Lisa, what part of the country do you think is seeing the biggest rise in inventory right now?
Well, the East.
Well, that's not what the numbers say. So what the numbers say is the biggest jumps compared to pre-pandemic, so 2019 levels. Huntsville, Alabama, number one, 85% increase in inventory since 2019. Texas, Florida, Colorado, they dominate this list. You get a little bit of Washington in there, Arizona. It's a lot of the Sun Belt states, the developing markets. The only market in the top 10 here And then you go down a little bit more. There's you see like Dallas pop up there as well. Is Phoenix, Arizona, and Dallas, Texas. Everything else in their rankings in terms of where they are in the metro size rank is no higher. And most of them are 100 plus. And so it's a very fascinating sheet. You see places like New Orleans and Nashville pop up there. Those are developing cities, right? There's a lot more construction there. Then you look at the 200 largest markets, and the 50 markets have the active inventories that are furthest from pre-pandemic levels. Number one's Connecticut. So Byron's seeing that. I mean, his theory there is accurate. Chicago is in the top of the list. They're down 57% from 2019. Let's see where Boston is. New York's down 46%. Philadelphia is down 41%. Let's see where Boston comes in. Boston was not in that list, so they're seeing a bigger rise in the Boston metro than they are in some other places. So the point is that it looks like the Northeast is growing slower, and these other developing markets that a lot of people flocked to during the pandemic, they've grown faster because I think a lot of people are moving back from them. That's been a trend that we've seen. What do you account all this for? This is, I mean, if you look at the country map that he has available, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't have that one up. But so in East, I meant more Southeast, right? Because you get Florida in there. Florida's had like a really big increase.
When I hear East, I think of the Northeast and the East Coast. So that is my bias. Yeah, you're absolutely right there.
Yeah. So I think you hit it spot on. There's some environmental factors, right? All of the recent storms and stuff are creating people wanting to leave those areas. I also think that, again, like you said, it was spots where now that people aren't being allowed to work remote, they're having to leave, which is fascinating, kind of small squirrel. But some of the conversations you and I and Byron have been having about what could it look like to work less in person. So funny to see the difference there, isn't it?
Well, you talked about Byron was down at Gary Ashton's office, right? Who's a friend of the show. And Gary has a lot of people that work virtually. He's also in Nashville, in one of the markets that are on the other end of this spectrum. You know, the flip side of that for real estate, and this is where it's a little different, is there's so much business done on the road. You're out in the field, right? And I think that's where the remote work is appealing, because when you come to an office, you're creating like an extra commute stop, right? So it's sometimes it can be out of the way. I mean, if I'm going from my home to the office here and I've got to meet somewhere in between, there might be a logistical issue that could cause that. Now, there's also staff people that want to work from home, and the workplace has changed a little bit too. So I think that there's going to be more of this hybrid stuff than anything else. I think that's probably where it always meets in the middle. But this to me is good news for anyone that's clamoring for more inventory. We're seeing it's going to take time. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. And the Northeast, specifically, the oldest part of the country, right? They're not going to have these big rises because the areas are already developed. Most of these markets have high levels of new construction that we don't see in our marketplaces.
You know, it's fascinating. Now, layer on top of that, Zillow's expectations for strongest home price appreciation in the next 12 months.
Okay.
All right. So top market, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Zillow expects a 6.5% growth rate in Atlantic City. Kingston, New York. I don't even know where Kingston, New York is tied with Augusta, Maine, 6.1%. Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Never heard.
That's a little further west. So that's kind of it's like northwest of Philadelphia. It's the home of Yuengling beer, the first craft beer in the country. People from my hood know that. So, but that's a little. It's kind of like all around. I mean, Atlantic City is an hour from Philadelphia, so they're kind of on either side, which is interesting.
Yeah, so it's funny because, like, when I look at this list, a bit of these, well, the ones that I know are a little bit more spread out a little. They're not really urban. Although Atlantic City being number one, like looking at Augusta, Maine, I'm going to guess Pottsville isn't so urban.
No.
Knoxville, Tennessee is up there. That's maybe a little bit more urban. Vineland, New Jersey.
Vineland.
Lewiston, Maine. Sure. Sorry. We pronounce things differently up here in Massachusetts.
No,
Concord, New Hampshire.
That's the proper
Bangor,
pronunciation,
Maine.
Lisa. That's the difference.
Well, some would say Worcester is pronounced Worcester, but we don't do it that way.
The proper pronunciation is Worcester. I'm aware of this.
Anyway, but then the home price, weakest home price appreciation is markets that are supposed to actually have depreciation. Lake Charles, Louisiana, down 7.8%. You're going to
Hmm.
correct my pronunciation on the next
I don't.
one.
I don't know. I don't know
Yuma,
that.
okay.
Can,
Also in Louisiana. But so it's fascinating to see such big swings, right? But it also ties to maybe a little bit about where inventory is changing.
For sure. And I mean, Atlantic City, I mean, that's an interesting one because that town has gone through so many ups and downs with their casino and development that goes on down there. But a lot of these, when I look at where these are located, they're some of the further out suburbs, right? The further out markets. Like
Hmm.
there's a major metro and maybe they're like an
Right.
hour away. You could say the same thing about Kingston, New York. That's right on the western or eastern border of no, western border of Connecticut, up New York State. It's, pretty further north of New York City. So when you see this, and I'll ask Bobby to put the map up here. What we're seeing is that you're looking at the major metros, and they do a nice job with this in the article because they show it by size and then by color. So the size is how big the metro is, and the deeper the blue is how large the price appreciation is going to be. Well, you look at all the major cities, that's where you're seeing price appreciation happen, which is what you would expect because there is a return to work mandate going on. I mean, the new mayor of Philadelphia is bringing everyone back to the offices. So, it's in line with where you're seeing inventory growth happen in other places because the price growth isn't as strong, and then you're seeing where inventory is still low, price growth is going to be stronger. This is, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Lisa. It's called supply and demand. That's really what we're talking about here. It's very simple, simple concept. And this is a normal market right now. This is what we saw prior to the pandemic. And there's a lot of agents that don't even know what to make of this. So, I'm pretty bullish on 2025 for this reason because we got all this economic data that tells me we're going to see rates hopefully come down a little bit, maybe mid sixes. And we're going to do our prediction show at the end of the year. We're seeing inventory rise. Inventory's already up 11, 12% in our market. Where's it at in Boston? What's going on in the Boston metro right now?
For what? Sorry, I was
Inventory. Where's spacing out on me? Okay. Thank you.
I did a little bit. We're actually up a little bit, which has been kind of fascinating to watch. It's definitely it's pocketed, right? There are certain areas where we're seeing things sit longer. I had somebody call me yesterday who was looking for a condo in the town that I live in. And I was like, oh, I didn't think there'd be anything. And I opened it up and we had 16 condos sitting on the market in Westford, which is more condos than we'd had units combined for like most of the past 12 months. At any point in time, we would be lucky to see 20 units all
Mm-hmm.
in the town for sale. And I opened it up and there were 16 condos alone, and not seasonal ones, like year-round condos, which is just a fascinating dynamic to see that inventory starting to increase. I don't think it's going to last.
I
I think
agree
this
with
goes
you.
back to the things that you and Byron and I say. The savviest buyers are going to take advantage of some of the opportunity that exists right now, right? There are people that need to sell. Prices are going to get a little bit soft because of supply and demand. And with that supply sitting there and demand a little bit lower, there's crazy good opportunity. That being said, flip side, there are other communities where we are still super low on inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Burlington, Mass, I looked the other day, had 10 single family homes. Like that's crazy low. So pocketed.
You bring up a good point there, though, too. What I've seen historically is that you usually see like the condo market's very different than the single family home market, and agents need to be
Yep.
aware of this. And I'm even and when I say singles, I mean non condos, right? That could be a townhome,
Yep.
it could be a twin, it could be I don't it doesn't have always mean a detached property, and you're always going to see the condos become the softest part of the market first because
Yep.
there's financing restrictions in some buildings based on ownership percentages, and those are things that are factors. You got some additional fees in there, right? There's things out of your control. Single family homes, that's where the demand is right now, and I don't think that's going to change for a while in the Northeast. That's what a lot of folks want. So that doesn't surprise me you're seeing condos, Lisa. I think it's indicative of the very beginning, and I don't think it's going to last, but we're seeing the market change from this whirlwind pace we were on to this is like 2018 and 2019. And what that means for agents is that you've got to focus on a couple things. One, high volume conversations. Two, understanding motivation at a high level. And three, building relationships long term. Because if you're looking for that quick sale, like spoiler alert, doesn't happen that often. how many times, I'm just curious here, before the pandemic, did you have a buyer you met with that bought the first home they looked at?
Yes.
How many? It was how many? Not
I
yes or no.
mean, we called it, oh, I mean, we call
Out to
them
lunch here.
unicorns.
Yeah.
It's so actually, I was totally paying attention. I think you worded the question wrong. I mean, yes, we call them unicorns. We still do for a reason, right? It's a very rare occurrence that that happens. They're mystical and they're magical. Legit, we
Yeah,
call them unicorns in my office.
for sure. We've had two. I can count two, and I've sold thousands of homes. Two times it happened. I remember both of them. And one of them, I showed them some other properties, but they've still bought the first one they inquired about. So that happens rarely, right? Because no, most
Hmm.
people don't know what they're talking about. I remember saying things to folks like the home you're going to buy is probably not on the market yet to buyers when I would meet with them, because we know that the best homes typically sell quickly, and that
Yep.
doesn't mean there's not opportunities out there to buy a great home. You just got to negotiate. You see something sitting on the market. When homes are priced right, they show well, they're marketed correctly, they move. That's a formula that works. So now that we're getting into, the end of November, I'm a big believer in the holiday hustle, right? And it's a key month for a lot of agents. I don't know if you're coaching your people on this, where what the holiday hustle means is, what are you doing every day to bring in business? Because there's a ton of distractions right now, right? I've gotten invited to like 5 different holiday parties already. There's holiday, gatherings, lunches, all this sort of stuff that goes on, right? Well, I've also got a job, and my job is to go find people that want to transact so I can help them and then get them into a home or help them sell their property. So, it's no different than what we talked about earlier with the local boards and business planning. Like, this is something they should teach all the agents, because if you have a plan for the month of December and you have a plan for next week, because we know it's a short week, right? I know exactly when I'm going to be working. I know what my KPIs are. I know what my job description is every day. And this is for every day in real estate. It just doesn't matter around the holidays. There's no better time to get started, because you can stack meetings now. People have a little more time off. You can get in front of them and at least start talking about it and build that relationship of trust. And you do that with follow up, because most agents don't call people back. You do that with information and educational content. You do that with relevant property information on the buy or sell side, depending on what client that they are. And the more you do that, the more homes you're going to sell in Q1 and Q2 when this pops, because history tells us the market will pop right after the first of the year, especially with everything going on right now, and especially post election when more homes sell and prices go up.
Without a doubt. I think the other thing that I'll add is we're encouraging all of our folks to do that, but also take advantage of the slight lull that we're in right now
Yeah.
so that they get everything prepared so that when it pops, they don't stop prospecting and filling their own funnels. So, using the time right now to generate marketing activities and collateral, get it all set to go. Think about what your schedule looks like for next year, right? None of us, despite you, the beast in the machine that you are, everybody probably needs to be a little bit realistic about how many weeks a year do they truly work, how many days a week, and really start, to your point, figuring out the KPIs ahead of time so that when January 1 rolls around, they know exactly what they need to be doing. And they've got a lot of it already pre-done, pre-thought about so that they can just keep going. But
You talk.
I'm go.
No, no, no. After you, Lisa. Ladies
Ah,
first.
ah, um,
Gentlemen.
sometimes. Um, I really just think it's like, folks, it's so easy to get lost in the doing the things now to create a powerful Q1, but then it's the easiest way to end up back on the commission roller coaster because you'll be so busy servicing all of the business that you've generated that it's easy to forget to do the things to keep that generation going for Q2, Q3, Q4. And right now is a gift. November and December are a gift to be able to get, oh, look at that. Oh,
I love
holiday.
this. You're getting me pumped up here. I'm going to go make 100 phone calls as soon as this pod's over.
Ditto.
And-
But it's a really great opportunity to line your business up, not just for Q1, but for Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2025.
Well, and what you talked about there, it is a gift, right? Because you're going to see agents that, like, they roll into the office. It's January 3rd. Hey, new year, new me. I went to the gym today for the first time in 9 months. I broke a sweat for the first time since Thanksgiving at my turkey trot. And that's way too late. Like, the year's over. Like, I mean, you maybe have a couple deals you can squeeze in before the end of the year. The die is cast at this point. And
Yep.
when you look at you talk about pre-planning, and I'm a big believer that if you've got a significant other, a spouse, someone like that, we talk about business planning and we do business planning with our team. And a lot of people talk about accountability. You know what the best accountability is? Sharing your business plan with your spouse or your significant other and tell them what you're actually going to do, because they don't need me or you or some other agent that, I mean, that works. Like we have an accountability call that works. But when it comes to business planning and income, that supportive spouse, that supportive significant other, that is one of the key ingredients in having a successful real estate career. And when you're planning with them and saying, hey, we're going to take off this week in July and I'm going to have a 3-day weekend here. And then they see that you're invested in actually being there. Because one of the complaints, I've had this with my wife. I mean, you know her well. And she does not take any shit, by the way. And I know you also know that. So it's, hey, you're working too much. But when you pre-plan these things, and look, this didn't happen overnight. I've had many disagreements, argument, all the real stuff that happens, because this has happened. I'd imagine you and Steve have probably had the same discussions, and I'm sure there's, it's, you're working too much. I want to be around, all that stuff, right? So when you invest, like, hey, I know I'm going to be off these times, it's a lot easier to focus on work instead of thinking of when am I going to get a couple days off here or there. And calendaring everything gives you certainty in your year. And this is what and if you're not ready to plan the whole year, just start with the first quarter, right? Like you don't have to do this all in advance. And I'm a big believer in planning that stuff well in advance. But if you're new to this, start with the first quarter. What's your mailing plan? What's your prospecting plan? What's your email plan? All the different channels that you can reach out. What's your social plan? Calendaring things works. And the people that do that, they actually follow through on it when they follow their calendar. It doesn't become that hard, because this business is not hard. It's about execution and implementing.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'll tag off of there is the word that I use with this is sacrifice, right? And I think everybody needs to be aware that there's sacrifice to be made one way or the other. And each of us has to decide what the sacrifice is that is worth it for us to make. And to your point, 100%, you need your spouse, your partner, your significant other to be on the same page about exactly what that sacrifice is going to be in order to accomplish goals. But if your goal is to sell more homes, earn more money next year, be clear that doing the same things that you did this year isn't going to get you that outcome, right? And so are you ready and willing and able and committed to making the sacrifice that's going to be involved with doing that? Or is the sacrifice that you're going to make on achieving your goals? One way or the other, it's a sacrifice.
Yeah, and we talked about time earlier in the show, right? I mean, time is the finite asset here, and you're either spending your time or you're investing your time, right? So some people, they're probably listening to this, they got it on in their car, or they're like Lisa, and I was actually talking to her, they're just not even paying attention right now, and that's spending your time, right? This is very real. Hear me out here. You're spending your time, right? Hey, I'm going to go out to happy hour tonight. That's spending your time, right? Investing your time is, hey, you know what? Before I go and meet my friends, I'm going to make an hour of phone calls and make sure I'm putting all my clients to bed for the weekend, so they're not wondering when I'm going to hear from them, which is a common problem with real estate agents. Hey, instead of having water cooler talk at the office or telling everyone complaining about my client, I'm going to go call some people. I'm going to, instead of looking at my CRM and trying to tell myself a story about it, I'm just going to call the people in there and see what's going on. That's spending your time versus investing your time. And it's okay to spend time too. Don't get me wrong. Everyone should be doing that. We've got our annual holiday get together for our mastermind group in a couple weeks. I'm going to be spending some time there, right? It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm going to be investing my time leading up to that. So I know, hey, at least I did the things that are getting me closer to my goals. And I may not see results right away, but I'm investing in myself to see those results at a later date, because the sales and the profits, they're going to come in waves.
Yeah. Can we, not just spending time, spending money, can we talk about the prices for hotel rooms in New York City? What
Ridiculous.
The heck?
So, and the best part is we found that one place, right? It was a reciprocal club I belonged to, whatever. It booked like within like minutes of sending an email. I mean, and I think this is actually pretty relevant, because Christmas time in New York City is like an awesome time, right? But it is so expensive staying there. I mean, it's incredible. And the hotel rooms in New York, like the studio I'm in right now, is probably bigger than the room I'll be staying in New York. I think that's probably safe to say. Yeah. Like you get like a bed crammed in there. You can't even get into it. You got to do like the G.I. Joe roll to get on the other side. It's brutal.
Yes. There was that first year? Do you remember? Go back 2 or
Oh,
3
Josh
years.
Rubin
It
told us
wasn't the
where to
first
stay.
one.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
stay here, guys. This is great.
The my bed was there was only one side accessible because the other 3 walls touched the other 3 sides of the bed.
The bathroom was like you like got up, and if you
It
turned
was
wrong,
from
you'd
a
hit your
prison.
head. Yeah, you'd hit your
Yeah.
head on the corner of the wall, and
Yeah.
which is fine. I'm not going there to hang out in a hotel room. I really don't care. That's New York for you, but New York City hotel rooms are expensive. I don't think there's any question about that.
So funny. All right, I'm almost at time. So one more thing before we wrap up. What you got?
All right, I get the surprise question here for you, Lisa. We're not doing a
Oh
show
wait,
next week.
I got to pay attention.
But yes, you're going to call me Byron next or something, but there's no anger in my voice, so hopefully you can recognize that. What is one thing in real estate that you're grateful for?
Oh, I love this question. All right. One thing in real estate that I'm grateful for, uh, I, I'm going to give you more than one. So I'm grateful for
Fine.
the relationships that I've made through my involvement in real estate. I am grateful for an industry that has allowed me to use my natural strengths and not made me feel like I don't fit into a mold. Because I've been fired from every job I've ever had. Um, but it's actually factual.
Shocking.
um, and I am thankful um, for I don't. It's corny, but I'm thankful for being able to kind of have a voice within the industry as well.
Man, that was
How
way
about you?
deeper than what I'm going to share. I'm thankful
Okay.
for electronic signature software, life changing. The first time I used this was 2009 or 2008, and like think about what can happen if you don't get something signed right away. Just like I want everyone to really go through this because I had to meet people like very late at night. Like I'll meet you in a parking lot, sign this paperwork. Like I mean, this is real life. And any agent who's been in the business longer than 15 years knows what I'm talking about. And I used it, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing, right? I mean, you talk about getting some time back. That's a major time saver. Like that technology is amazing to me. Don't take that for granted. That would be number one. A GPS. I mean, do you ever have to use the map book to get around your marketplace?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah,
Or
it's
well,
brutal,
not
right?
not as an agent. Yeah, no, can't do it.
Okay, I
Yeah.
had to do it as an agent. There would be grids in the MLS that would say you're on page 58 G2, right? And that's where the house is located. And then I have to go highlight it, copy the map book, or like because I didn't want to circle it on the one I had in case I got lost somewhere. And I'm trying to navigate like driving around. I mean, it was insane. So just those two things alone, and then you miss the house or like the street, the numbers are dark, right? It's dark out because you're meeting someone at their you can't figure out which house is theirs. Like I've gone to the wrong house before because of that. Like this stuff has all happened. So GPS, electronic signatures, those are two things that have literally changed my life, along with the CRM as well, because that's another way to have high volume conversations and keep track of it all because you're never going to keep it straight up here. I'm very grateful for the technology in real estate, and the technology in
I
real estate,
get that.
it's not even that great compared to other industries. Like it's a mess, but it's better
Very
than what we used to
antiquated.
have.
Yep.
So that's helped me get a little time back and, a lot of time back and not make me look like an idiot, which is always a good thing.
All
At
right.
least,
So
at least
you
had the
went
deep one.
surface, I went deep.
I mean, it's not surface. I mean, who wouldn't rather send a contract from home or from your office than have to go meet
I get
somebody
you.
and do all that, and then like the offer comes in at the last minute, you lose the house. Like, imagine if that happened with a house you were buying. Like, I would be pissed off. So,
Agreed.
I'll tell you what I'm
Agreed.
grateful for on the non-surface level. Certainty in the market moving forward. I think there's a going from this wild and crazy roller coaster we've been on the past 3-4 years. It feels like there's certainty now. And I'm very optimistic about 2025 for a lot of folks. We've said it on the show here, survive until 25. And a
Yep.
more certain market leads to better business practices, leads to better decisions, and lets you run your business like a business instead of running around just chasing deals. And so I think that's something everyone should be grateful for as we wrap up 2024 here.
I love it. All right. Yeah. No show next week, right? Byron's back the week after that.
That's what he says. I don't know. I mean, it's we'll see if he makes it back from St. John's when he was. Did you see he tried to FaceTime us like Tuesday or Wednesday night or something like that? I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're on vacation. Gotta
Yeah.
love it.
I was asleep well before that whole conversation happened. So
It was like 8 o'clock for the record, everybody. So Lisa's an early riser. All right, that's all we got this week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Go eat some turkey. We will see you in 2 weeks on the Knowledge Brokers podcast.
On August 17th, the rules of the game changed. You know that. And now there is more opportunity than ever for the best agents to capture market share. Talking about the agents who are true knowledge brokers, expert advisors to their clients, and masters of the craft. You're one of those agents. That's why you're here. Or if you want to be one of those agents, one thing you need to do right now is invest in your client experience. We all have CRMs, but CRMs are designed to nurture and convert leads. You can't treat your clients like leads. That's one of the biggest reasons agents lose referrals and repeat business. What you need is a CEP, a client experience platform, to give your clients the best digital experience possible. The CEP my team and I use is Mosaic. Mosaic kicks in when a lead becomes a client, providing a seamless experience from search to closing, transaction management to long-term client retention. It gives you all of the tools you need to impress your clients and showcase your value, helping you generate more referrals, repeat business, and client loyalty. Mosaic is a huge competitive advantage for agents, but spots are limited in each market, and some are already full. Head to mosaic.io, or click the link in the description to see if there's any availability in your market. Don't miss your chance to build a lasting edge over the competition. At BMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BMX.